Thanks, everyone. Yeah, excited to provide a part two to this presentation. I nearly called it Design Your Life Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, but I wasn't sure if people would have gotten the reference, but okay, maybe I should have gone with that. I did want to do a quick sort of introduction. So for those that don't know me, I've done my whole design career in Perth, basically. Worked at multiple different... Yeah, go Perth! Come on! So, you know, worked across different industries, different agencies, some that don't exist anymore, and a number of different companies and many friendly faces that are in the room today. I've been fortunate enough to work with a number of you. Graphic designer way back when, created CD-ROMs back in the day, go director! And then switched into people management and been doing that for the past 10 years or so and get absolute joy from the teams that I get to work with. I love design systems. I'm a massive design system advocate. I am gutted I'm missing Ben's talk at the moment, which is covering on design systems, but I will catch that again. I'm currently at Atlassian. I work within our design system team, within our accessibility team within design system world, and get to work remotely with people all based around the globe and build fantastic products. And obviously some of you know me from the communities that I've been involved in and get huge value from. This being one of them. This was the first design community that I got involved in, and it's got I'll mention it in the talk, but a special place for me. As well as Friends of Figma is another community. I'm going to do a little plug. We've got Friends of Figma running in Perth as well as Sydney, and soon to be somewhere else, but I can't mention that. Okay, so the talk that I'm talking about today is based on a presentation that I gave in 2019, based on the book Design Your Life by Vince Frost. Since then, I'll cover off a bit more about it, but I discovered the other book, Designing Your Life, and how I will pitch these. Vince's beautiful typography, UI, like it's there, okay? Frameworks on the right. And I'll touch on more on the frameworks because I started with the one on the left. Both have been super inspirational. Vince has a fantastic book where he interviews different designers and design leaders, yeah, highly recommend his podcast. So this is where it all kind of came from. So I want to do a bit of a flashback to 2019, if we can remember back then. And I gave this talk at the first UX camp, and I found myself in the lead up to that at a stage in my life where I had just been working through a number of years with mental health challenges. I was in a dark space, within depression. There's a YouTube link that I can share you on a talk that I gave in 2016 about that. And I had spent a number of years leaning on the one thing that has always helped me navigate challenges within my career and in my work life, which was design, and how I could lean on that to be able to help me, I guess, get me through some of those dark times, as well as other things as well, but help me then think about where I want to go next within my career. And so I just found myself at a stage within 2019, the usual sort of things, dealing with challenges of family and career, parenthood, friendships, all of those sort of things. But I realised that I was at a stage where I needed to change stuff because I wasn't necessarily happy where I was within my life. I was working at a local company, Australian Finance Group, some of the crew here today, and I had been there for 9 years, started off as a design team of one, and then that was me, and then managed to grow that over time to build a small but mighty team that did a lot. And I stepped into people management and started to grow my skills quite a bit. But I found myself jumping between lots of day-to-day sort of projects, the strategic level stuff right down to the day-to-day sort of functioning. And it's just not sort of sustainable, I found for myself. But I had a really great team and had a really great crew and an amazing, culture that I was a part of. But I knew I needed to make a change and I needed to leave. So this is when I thought, okay, I need to start doing something differently. And so this was me, 2019, first UX camp, delivering this talk. It was the first talk that I'd ever given at a design conference. Part of my role when I was at AFG, I was speaking at a lot of large, so those that don't know AFG, a mortgage aggregator, so working with a lot of large banks, and I was speaking at a lot of finance industry conferences. So I was used to getting up in front of 500 plus people and delivering a talk on products and solutions that we were doing. Put me in a room full of designers and I was shitting myself because this is the people that can see through the marketing bullshit that we can get up and do in front of clients, right? It's a massive fear. Now, there's one person that, they're not in the room today, but Phil, who kicked off UX Camp, I owe him giving me that sort of confidence of like, mate, this is a really great talk. Just get there and share your story. It's going to connect with one person. And that's always then resonated with me because he gave me so much, and it's been like, well, how do I give this back as much as I can as well? And so getting involved within the community, I think was like, one of the first sort of steps. And then as soon as I sort of finished that presentation, so that would have been like May 2019 or so, I was like super, just welcomed into a community. Jonathan, Christy, many other people, or Andrew, who I gave a shout out to earlier today, like so many people just were like welcomed me into the community. It's something that I continue to see even today. And so I then thought, okay, am I actually designing my life correctly, or have the talk that I have done just followed previous patterns in things that I have done? So when I started to really question myself of like, okay, what if my life is a product? And what I mean by that is like, we all build amazing products and services for customers, right? And so when we think about designing our lives, this is something that it's like, how do we then actually take those lessons and those ways that we, solve those problems and help us look at designing, a better life. And so I was inspired by this sort of concept to help me make sense of, I guess, the confusion that I found myself in, working through many things, but then also giving me the confidence that I'm either making a good decision or I'm making a decision that if it doesn't necessarily work out how I had thought, well, then I know I've got option A or B or C and how I can pivot. Just like what we're doing when we're, in our, continuous release cycles, right? And so it was just me thinking about and reframing stuff as we always do, just reframing things as much as I could to just help me get that sort of confidence. So I did a product review of myself, okay? So it was after that talk, a few months afterwards, I really started to look at, okay, how do I reframe things? And I started to think of things like, okay, what's the code quality? I started off as graphic design, then I did like coding, but then I was like, I'm not as smart as some of the coders. I'm gonna go back to design. And so then I started thinking, well, what's the code quality of my life, basically? And I realized that I was being so reactive to things within my life. I wasn't actually keeping myself on track. I wasn't being I was like a dodgy WordPress instance where I just like put all different plugins and stuff, and then they would all clash with each other and you get an error. That's how I was operating. But from the outside, it was like, cool, this is, it's working well. Also, if you're not into coding, I hadn't named my layers within Figma. Maybe we'll go with that, okay? And so I realized that, okay, I needed to actually take this from more of a strategic point of view and think about like, what are the long-term goals that I want to get to? And it doesn't matter how I get there, but as long as I know where I'm going. And so, I started to think about, okay, I needed to shift away from these like little hacks that I had done over the time, and stop seeing them as like the random sort of client requests that you get. Right? Can you change that blue to be more blue or something? I guess what I'm talking about is like, I would say, and I think I gave this in my first talk, it was like, I realized that, exercise is really great for my mental health, which it is, and I totally still rely on it. But doing half an hour a week was not actually making a difference. But from the outside and saying that, yeah, it seemed good, right? So that's the things that I needed to actually critique myself, a bit deeper. So I found myself towards the end of 2019 and going, all right, I'm doing a project restart, I'm refreshing this, and I'm going to actually think about everything from a different point of view. And oh my God, I hope this goes down well, but I'm such a nerdy person for saying this out loud. I did a service blueprint of my life. And thank you. Woo! And that's the one thing I want to share. It's like there are lots of frameworks and there's lots of things, and there's, I know there was so many other talks that were sharing similar things as well today, and there's so much we can all learn from each other because there's just, we've all got so many different sort of experiences. But I just took what I knew, and I just knew that that was just for me, like no one else, right? So there was I didn't need to present it to anyone, so I could keep it all rough and ready as much as I needed to. But it just helped me get like the complexity out of my brain and like into paper, into a format that I understood. And so this was like looking at my relationships, my work, where I have support, where I don't necessarily find the pain points, all of those sorts of things, and realizing, okay, this is going to help me. And the Designing Your Life book that I mentioned, they use a framework which is the Odyssey plan. So similar to like a vision map that we would set for a client, that was essentially it. And so I took everything that I'd initially done, used the Odyssey plan framework, and then started to think about, well, where are the three the three possibilities of where I could end up if, from a vision. And so one of them being, okay, I've got the safety and stability of my current role at AFG. Do I want to stay there? What are the pros and cons that are going to be like that for me? And what would be the other things that I'd need to then focus on within my personal life to address some of the challenges that I was having? Second option, I leave and I go somewhere else. Holy crap, that was like a daunting thing after being somewhere for 9 years, right? And what would that be? What could that option be for me? And I thought about it like, okay, I need to reframe everything. What's the worst that could happen? I end up somewhere and I don't really like it. I can always leave and go somewhere else, right? And just giving myself that confidence to be able to just even think about that. And so even that, I started to then map it out of like, all right, I'm gonna give myself 6 to 12 months. If I'm not happy at the end of those 12 months, then I can leave. Had the support from my wife, had, all of that sort of stuff that I just needed to do. And I also need to remind myself at this stage, I was like 15 years into my career. Like I knew some stuff. I wasn't just getting started. Option 3, I could work for myself. Now that was something that I had never really thought about. I'd always done like side hustles and done side projects and those sorts of things, but could this be something that would allow me to spend more time with my family, have the true sort of work-life balance that I was hoping for? But I'm the son of a financial planner, and then job security kept coming into my head of like, okay, how is that going to go? And I know for many of you, we're all in those different sort of worlds and spaces, but I'm just sharing like my story and like how this those sorts of things so daunting for myself. So I went through the the whole Odyssey plan process, and where that helped me to think about things differently was, okay, I needed a change. Now the thing with change is I realized it doesn't happen by chance, and so I needed to spend a lot of time thinking about how can I provide myself the confidence and the validation of that I'm on the right path. And I did a lot of this by just speaking with other people that had recently switched jobs, people that were design leaders, and many of you in the room I caught up for coffee with, and just got to speak to that people that I met in that community, and it allowed me to think, okay, if I could do this, they've done this, okay, I'll pick and take what I need. But then I also spoke to people that aren't in design. What's it like, for one of my cousins who's an electrician working for himself? Does that actually meet the dream that I've got for option 3? The flexibility that I perceive, all of those sorts of things. And so that really helped me to get a bit of an understanding. I also met with my stakeholders, so that is my wife, my daughter, who at that stage, when 19, so Finn would have been 6 or so. And I had this conversation with her, like, dads might switch jobs. What's this going to mean? She's 6. I still got some good feedback because I got to understand, well, what she wanted from me. She wanted me to be more present, And I was like, okay, cool. I can work with that. What is that going to look like? So I landed on option 2, which was basically I needed to leave where I was and I needed to end up somewhere else, and it would be whatever it would be. And if it doesn't work, doesn't suit me after a period of time, I would leave. So that was end of 2019. 2020 rolls around, there was a few things that happened that year. But where I ended up was I got to start working with a great team at RAC, and I got to then spend a number of years building out a design function and scaling out a team there, which through 2020 and 2021, we had the fortunate experience of being able to work from home for a long time. That allowed me to kind of then prototype, oh, can I work from home? What's the impact of that? My wife is an illustrator and works from home, so suddenly her and I were working next to each other. So then that adds another bit of complexity into it, and we had to pivot on our approach there. So then, even with all the challenges that came through COVID, it also just reminded me that even with any great plan, and this was also with any product delivery that we do, sometimes luck is just on your side and you just roll with it. And that's something that I'm just kind of stuck with. I've been like, okay, that was a lucky time that I got to prototype what it was like working from home for me, and is it something that I wanted? So then I started to then look at, well, okay, what are the principles that I wanted to live by? So I created my own design principles. I know, nerdy, but so just like any product or project that we do, we establish our principles to help understand what's important to our customers. I'm the customer. There's no magic format. I sat down and I was like, all right, Simon, what are the 5 principles that you want to live by? And so this is where I landed. Start small, go big. And I'll go through each of these in more detail. So start small, go big. Be fit-ish. Comfortable in the uncomfortable, know my worth, and connect into communities. Some of you that I've worked with have probably heard me say some of these things, but yeah, they're the things that I continue to come back to. So to talk through start small, go big, where I landed on this was like, if I think about any of our agile methodologies or product sort of delivery, it's all about how do we break down everything right into small manageable tasks that allow us to get to that end goal. I've got ADHD, so I really always need to make sure how much I can break down for me to be able to stay focused. So I started looking at, okay, how can I help myself combat this? And so there's like many things that fit into these principles, but one thing that I want to touch on is I created a framework for myself from a book called Make Time. I can't remember the author's names, but feel free to Google that. Actually, the 2 guys work at Google. I set myself the daily focus. So what I have done, and I do this every single day, is I've got 2 focuses for the day. 1, what is the one thing that I need to achieve for work? And 2, what is the one thing that I need to achieve for me? So we all have complex days. We all have things that go every single different way, right? As long as I achieve those 2 things, I've had a successful day. Rather than what I was experiencing back in 2019 was trying to juggle all these different things with little life hacks and get to the end of the day and just be like, did I do anything today? Like, what is work? What have I actually done? And so it's a simple little thing. I've got a little notebook that sits on my desk and I work through that every single day. And so to give you an example, it might be, okay, I've got to finish, it's Friday today, so for today it would be, I've got to finish my weekly project updates and send those out to the team. So that's like a work thing. That's like, I need to close that out. Another could just be, well, probably not today, but go for a run at the end of the day. As long as I do those 2 things, I've had a successful day. It could be play Animal Crossing with my daughter. It could be something completely different, but it's like I need to focus on having that balance and help me get to that bigger picture. When I talk about be fit-ish, I think when I first sort of started about like how do I redesign my life to help my mental and physical health, I had this idea of like perfection. And even like when I started getting into like running, because everyone's getting into running, but even when I started getting into running like recently, it was always like, oh, I've got to be building to like a marathon. And everyone's be like, when are you doing the marathon? And I'm like, then I had this realization of like, no, I just like doing like a 5K run. That's it, right? And nothing against people that do marathons. But it was like, I'm comfortable with that. And that's fine. And so I needed to then think about it and reframe it, for myself there. But what I also needed to think about was like, while like eating healthy and all of those sorts of things and staying away from junk food is fantastic, I have a tendency that I realized I could go the complete opposite and then just become super focused on being like super healthy all the time. And that in itself is super unhealthy. So it was about, well, how can I just keep that balance and just, be fit-ish in a sense. And then that was also like with my work as well. I think from being in a small team, juggling lots of things, I was so used to taking on everything. And then I soon realized it's not my job to do everything. There's amazing people that I get to work with that I trust and that I want to help them grow as individuals in their career. So it's not up to me to look at doing everything. And that's a hard thing to like untrain yourself from doing, but over the years that's been the focus. Getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. I just always needed to encourage myself to get out of the comfort zone, you know, and so it was like pushing myself. Doing that first design talk at at UX Camp was like the first sort of thing of like getting uncomfortable. Stepping outside of, you know, a company that I'd been at for like 9 years and ending up, you know, somewhere else, and getting more involved in things that I'm passionate about, super passionate about design systems. So I wanted to learn everything about that. But I had this thing in my head of like, I'm never going to be an expert in design systems. And guess what? Even though I've been doing it for years now, I'm still not an expert. There's always something to learn, right? And it's just reminding ourselves that we need to constantly, we're never going to be perfect in everything, but it's like until we start to try and get a little uncomfortable, we can learn so much. And I think what I then started to see is the more I use some of these other little principles and, you know, stretching myself a little bit within reason, you look back over a year or two and you realize I have come so far from where I was in 2019, from making these small little changes and just testing the waters and getting myself a little uncomfortable. Knowing my worth, I know some of these things might feel like cliche and like a shelf help book esque, but to me, like, know my worth was all about like reframing things. So after doing the initial talk at UX Camp and spending more time within the community, getting to know other people, I realized, okay, I do know a lot, and there's a lot of things that have happened throughout my life that I can lean on. My first job was at Toys R Us in Hay Street Mall, you know, many years ago when I was like 14. There's things that I learnt from then that now I think are just part of my DNA: customer service, how I interact with people, ensuring that things are followed up on. So I think it's a reminder to me that there's so much that we all learn throughout our lives and careers and everything that we do that brings value to the company that we work in, or, you know, the projects that we're involved in. And I also needed to reframe what I meant by worth. I started to look at time differently. So the time that I spent with my family, how much is that worth to me as opposed to doing emails, responding to Slack messages and those sorts of things at night? And once I then started to think about things, I feel so nerdy even saying this sort of stuff, like you know, what's the dollar value of my time at work versus the dollar time spending time with my family? Reframing it in that sense, you just start to go, this is just not worth my time at all. And that has always then stuck with me. And so then I've needed to make decisions at times when I'm like, okay, this project, this, you know, company that I'm involved in, or work, or whatever it is this worth my time? And do I need to, you know, look at shifting on? And staying connected into communities. So as I've mentioned, this community, especially this one within UX Camp, about the Perth design community, is something that I just absolutely love. We are so fortunate to have such a welcoming community here of different folks working on different, you know, amazing sort of projects. And the thing that I love is that even though people, you know, leave Perth, they come back, we're very fortunate to be able to continue to share that sort of knowledge and learn from each other. And so I think back to my original sort of goals of like, okay, was it like I wanted to work from home, I wanted to be more connected with my family, what could that look like? If I end up working somewhere remotely, I'm going to need a community around me, because I'm not going to have a day-to-day office to go into. And those that have worked with me know I'm a very social person. And so that was something that was then the kind of hesitating for me of like, you know, can I feel comfortable in it? And so that's where I found myself like going, I want to get more involved within communities, because I want to experience that work. I want to experience that life, but I know that I need that social interaction every so often as well. And so it's thinking about those different things. Beyond design, yeah, I also joined a running club. Well, I started a running club with a neighbour as well, and we meet every Saturday morning down in Guildford. If you're ever in Guildford, come join us. Those sorts of things have been great because it's like, okay, yeah, I work 100% remote. None of my team is based here in Perth, but I've still got that social interaction that's beyond work, that's beyond friends and family, and that's just people I get to hang out with and talk about whatever. And so just landing on those sort of 5 principles in sort of 2020 really helped me with any sort of decisions that I went through over the next 4 years and to where we are now. When I think about like this in a delivery standpoint, who's helped me deliver this? If I think about like a normal team structure, you've got your team, your stakeholders, consultants that might come in and help you up level on delivery, and your suppliers and vendors that you work with. Okay, so I'm the team. My stakeholders, as I've mentioned, my wife, my kids. So shout out to Finn, my daughter, who turned 11 on Tuesday, and Bernard and Kate, who are tattooed on my left arm here. That's my cat and dog, by the way. And the did I mention my wife? Okay, phew. Okay, consultants as well. If I think about consultants, these were the mentors and people that I met with to help me, get a bit of understanding. But then also health and wellness professionals. I've seen my psychiatrist and my psychologist over the years. They were the consultants that I brought into my, life to help me, design better in a sense as well. Suppliers, so if I think about my gym, my community, workplaces, all of those sorts of things, they're what I frame as my suppliers that I, work with. So what I want to remind you is that no product or project that we work on is ever done, right? We always need to lean on empathizing with ourselves, so that we know and understand what are our needs and motivations for our career or our personal lives. I'm constantly reviewing my goals and do they match where I am within my life and where I want to go. I'm not regularly ideating, what are some potential paths and solutions that I can go down. And the more that I've gotten into this sort of rhythm of doing these sorts of things, they help. Prototyping new habits, just with small changes to my lifestyle, whatever that could be, and seeing, is that effective? Right now, I'm like, do I need to go to the gym, or can I just rely on my Apple Fitness at home and do some exercise from home? Because I'm like, I'm wanting to see how that works. So I'm doing 3 months, pause my gym membership. Am I actually going to do it from home? Hot tip, it's not working for me. I need to get out of the house, but I'm just prototyping exactly what that works with. And then just testing different little things, changing my routine, whatever, getting feedback from my clients, my wife and my daughter, and then looking at how I can approach those differently. And so the one thing I want to leave you with and have you take away is your life is the most important design project you will ever work on, all right? So make sure you give it the time, effort that it deserves, because we all ignore it and we get distracted by all the other things that are happening in our lives. So I want this talk to inspire you. I want you to use the skills that you've got solving all the amazing problems that you do on a daily basis to help you build a better life. Simon from 5 years ago that you saw in that photo is a very different person to Simon now, for a number of reasons. And I definitely do think that, through having this focus on designing my life and just using the things that I do and use on a day-to-day basis, talking to the people that I've talked to, learning from all the people that I've been able to learn, I'm definitely at a stage where I'm just kind of pausing for the moment. It's not always about new feature releases and adding bloat to, my life. It's just, I'm just pausing and, just changing some things and prototyping here and there. So I just want to say thank you so much to you all for listening today, but also thank you so much for this community.